Climbing is a physically demanding sport that requires fitness, agility and mental fortitude. Finger strength is paramount to success. The fingers are powered by flexor muscles in the forearms. These flexor muscles work to pull tendons that run up the arm into each of the fingers. In the fingers, tendons are held tight against the bone by bands of ligaments called pulleys. When the arms will contract and pull, this incredible lever and pulley system lifts the whole body upwards. Training these muscles is key to strong, controlled climbing. The plan for today is we're going to give you a comprehensive overview of how to train your fingers specifically, and then more broadly your upper body as a whole. So we're going to start with a warm-up and mobility for the whole body. Then we're going to get into a finger and wrist specific warm-up, followed by a wall specific warm-up. After that, we're going to jump into the main part of the video, which is all about the fingerboard training. So this gives you a follow along and kind of everything you need to know around fingerboarding. And then we wrap it up at the end, just in a bit of additional finger training, mainly on like a climbing board, a moon board, something like that. And then finally, some additional upper body conditioning, which you can either do in the gym, or if you don't have access to a gym, some of these exercises are things you can implement in your own home to continue training when you've not got that gym access. Fantastic, so we're going to jump straight in with some warm-up and mobility exercises just to get the body firing, get the muscles warmed up and ready for the physical exertion to come, ready for the training to come. So we start with some gentle hops, jumping up and down on the spot, getting the heart rate up and the blood pumping. Once we've done the hops, as you can see here, shaking the hands out, just nice full body activation. We're going to go into some skiing arms where you're driving the arms down towards the ground like you're a skier, just waking up the shoulders and the elbows. Next, into some chest expansions, focusing on squeezing in and then opening the chest up back, kind of just getting the upper body and the chest warmed up, and then into just some torso twists, warming up the core and that central region. From here, we're moving quite quick into some backwards arm swings, starting slow, get a good range of motion, and then as you start to feel warmer, increase the size of the circle, and obviously taking it on both sides. Once you've done that, you can then do both arms together. Next little exercise is a pulse raiser. The arms are up above the head and you're shaking them out as you jump. And finally into some elbow articulations. You can see just drawing a good circle round the opposing arm. Again, just getting the range of motion and mobility in the elbows. Finally, some low lunge stretching, side to side. You obviously, climbing's mainly upper body, but it is the legs as well. And again, because we're going to be training the fingers later on, just starting to warm up the wrists is a great way to jewel up on this stretch. And finally, a bit of butterfly stretching. Brilliant. And now we're into the specific wrist and finger warm up. Ideal to do before any hangboard session to make sure we don't injure ourselves. So this is a good comprehensive warm up just to get the fingers, the wrists and the elbows really firing. So starting with wrist rocking, you're pressing down into the ground and you're just moving forwards and backwards over that wrist, pivoting, just opening up the back of the wrist and getting some bit of a stretch through the wrists. So you can see there you come into just over vertical with the forearms. To progress from here, we take it into wrist round, so we're still in that crawling type position, and now you're drawing a big circle over your wrists. Kind of drawing the biggest circle you can, just really getting the wrist joint to articulate round and just putting a nice amount of pressure through the ground. Obviously, make sure we're drawing this circle both ways. After this, we go into some forearm reverse activation. So this is where you're going to flip the wrists over so the inside of your elbows is facing away from you. And if you want to, you can just come up into a plank position and then just walk the hands forwards and backwards. Should really start to feel this opening up in the forearms. Next, we're into some finger pressing. So again, back to your crawling position, and you're just going to press up with the fingers, really driving up out of the index and the middle finger. The ring finger comes into it as well. And then press back down, just creating a good amount of tension through the hands. Backhand presses is the next drill. So we're going to flip our hands over. So we're going to rest the back of the hand on the mat, and then we're just going to squeeze the fingers in and out like we're kind of clawing at the air. Again, great for just getting the full flexors and extensors of the forearm firing. Finally, we're into this plank press. So in a plank position, you're just going to press up onto your fingertips, little hold, and then you let it come back down. Just starting to load the fingers a bit more, but without putting an excessive amount of weight through them, just working the body weight. Very nice. Moving slightly more towards the elbows and the kind of the upper arm as well, we're just going to go into some press-ups. Doing this off the wrist kind of increases the range of motion in the elbows and the shoulders. Variation is to do it on your hands as well. So you're pressing all the way down to the ground, chest comes to the floor, and press back up, back stays nice and straight, bum stays low, core's engaged. Nice and smooth. So before we do any hangboarding, it's also good to get the wall activation, because this obviously puts us into a more diverse, ever-changing environment and just wakes up some of those micro adjustments that we might not have done in the kind of specific exercises we've implemented. So here we're going to start on a traverse wall, so a nice flat wall, and you're just going to work along the wall using whichever holds you can, just to kind of wake up the hands, get used to grabbing the holds. Once you're feeling good on that, find a bit of a circuit and just do some laps. Do whatever feels good here. You're going to be moving backwards and forwards, lots of different holds. Sometimes you're going to cut loose with the feet, working lots of different grip types. Now we're into the finger specific training, and I'm now going to jump in on a different type of voiceover. So this is the key part of the workout. This is what, if you're going to take anything home, it's this bit. Nice one, guys. Hopefully now you're feeling good and warm, nice and mobilised. You've followed along with the exercises that we've done prior to this, and we're now going to jump into the main part of the workout. So for the main part of the workout, we're going to be doing a hangboarding session. Hangboarding is great for developing finger strength because it works the muscles of the forearms and the ligaments and tendons within our fingers. For this session, I'm going to be using the hangboard in the gym. So this is down at my local wall. I'm going to do a voiceover so you guys can follow along with me. When we are hangboarding, we're never going to hangboard until a failure, especially when we're starting our hangboarding journey. The reason for this is by going to failure, you're putting a lot of load through the ligaments and the tendons of the fingers, and this opens us up to a much higher risk of injury and pulley strain and stuff like that, which clearly we don't want to do. Therefore, we're going to adjust the intensity to suit. Firstly, the edge size that we hang on. For me, I typically hang on a 16 to 20 millimeter edge for most of my hang training. If I wanted to make that easier and reduce the load of my fingers, I could hang on a larger edge. Likewise, when I'm kind of feeling strong, when I'm training for a comp, I might drop that edge size down and go into a smaller, something like a 14, 12 millimeter edge. But again, that increases the load on the fingers. So just before we dive in, a few different grip types in climbing. We've got a full crimp, which is where all four fingers and the thumb are on the hold. The fingers are typically pretty bent in this grip position, and you're putting in a maximum amount of force through the fingers. This is a great grip position because it's super strong, but because of that high force, it also opens us up to the greatest risk of injury, and therefore when we're training, we want to try and avoid this grip type. The second main grip type we're going to use is a half crimp. This is where four fingers are on the edge, and typically this is defined by a 90-degree bend in the mid knuckle of the fingers. Obviously, with climbers, there's a lot of variation in hand size and finger length, so this is going to look slightly different for everyone. The third grip that we could train is the drag grip, and this is where the hand is in a much more open position. Again, this is a good grip to train. Typically you've got 4, sometimes 3 fingers on the hold, again depending on finger length, and the hand is opened up. It's a weaker grip, but one that we still need to train because it's fundamental to developing that well-rounded climbing strength. That being said, for most of this hangboarding, especially when you're starting out, we're going to train this half crimp position. This is because it's the most versatile grip and the best way to develop finger strength whilst minimising risk of injury. Today, we're going to dive into a repeater session, and I'm going to do 5 seconds of work followed by 5 seconds of rest for 5 repeats. I'm then going to take 2-3 minutes recovery, I'm going to dive in again with the same set, and I'm probably going to do somewhere between 3 to 5 repetitions of this depending on how I'm feeling. What I'm looking for is I can perform all the 5-second hangs consistently, where I feel like I'm working but I've got something left in the tank, and I'm not going to that failure point. So with that, I'm going to dive right into my first set. You guys can follow along, you can see my grip style, and we'll take it from there. So now we're into the hangboarding workout. There's a couple of things that we need to think about whilst training. So firstly, it's the form of our hang form. And this is mainly to do with the shoulders and the core activation while we hang. We want to hang in this nice, what we're going to call mid-shoulder engagement position. The shoulders aren't really contracted and pulled down where we're pulling the scapula down. We don't want that. Likewise, we don't want the shoulders to be disengaged and rise right up towards the ears, so there's no engagement whatsoever in the shoulders. We want somewhere in between the two, just a nice mid hang. Shoulders are moderately engaged but not fully engaged, and the core is nice and tight. The second piece of form we need to consider is the finger form. While we're training on the hangboard, we're going to be training in this half crimp position. If at any point during the training our fingers begin to open up away from the half crimp position into more of a full drag, that's likely a sign of fatigue within the fingers and that we're overloading them too much. Therefore, in order to mitigate this, we need to decrease the amount of time we hang for, increase the depth of the edge, or reduce the number of reps in the session. Obviously with finger training, it's a finite balance between loading the fingers whilst not overloading the ligaments and tendons themselves. Final consideration is the length of the recovery. Because we want to sustain good form, we want to give ourselves the optimal time to recover, which is usually somewhere between 2 and 3 minutes. If you come back onto your hang and you feel like you are not yet recovered, it's too short. If you feel like you're sufficiently ready to hang again and your form is sustained throughout, you've probably got it about the right length. Times in our hang training, we're going to start to reach a plateau where the fingers are developing strength and we really start to condition the tendons and ligaments and muscles in the forearm. In order to progress our hang training, we might want to start to modify the hang in order to stimulate a higher training load. And to do this, we can add a weight to the hang. So when it comes to adding a weight, is to put on a weighted belt. This way you can progressively start to increase the load that you add to your body weight, effectively increasing your body mass. When it comes to adding weight to the hangs, we obviously want to do this progressively so that we don't open our body up to an excessive load. For me and in our training, I try to stick to the rule of thumb that I'm never going to add more than kind of 2.5 kilograms of weight per every 2-week cycle. What this means for me is if I start doing a hang with 5 kilograms of weight for the first 2 weeks, after that 2-week period, I then might increase the weight on that to 7.5 kilograms for the next 2 weeks. I know this seems like quite small increments, and quite often you will find you could shove more on, but in terms of overloading the fingers and reducing an excessive amount of stress, I think this is a really good way to moderate the hang. And over time, you build up that weight progressively, and therefore once you do start getting to the heavier hang weights, you're far more conditioned to deal and train with that load effectively. What happens if you're on the converse of this and actually hangboarding with just your body weight is equally too much load to sustain in your fingers? Maybe you're just starting out on hangboarding, or you're trialing new grip types or finger combinations such as monos. We want to find a way to be able to still train these grip positions without overloading the fingers. And a great way to do this is to add some assistance to your hangs. I do this with bands, and there are different weighted bands, all the way from heavy bands which take off more load to much lighter bands which take off less load. By applying one of these bands underneath the hangboard and then putting my foot into it, I can reduce my body weight, effectively reducing the amount of load I'm putting through my fingers on the hang. This is a great way, like I say, to train new grip types and to develop into climbing hangboarding in particular. Just like with the weighted hangs, one way to train this is to start with the heavier bands until your fingers become conditioned, and then you start reducing the band size until you feel you can hang just using your body weight. With both methods, I think you might need to reduce the volume of sets and or the hang time, again to help compensate and help reduce the load on the fingers and allow your body to adapt in a sustainable way. Amazing, nice one guys, fantastic work. So that's the end of our hangboarding session, or example hangboarding session. Once you're done with the hangboarding, obviously your fingers are feeling quite worked and most of the time you're going to take a rest. What we're going to introduce now is some additional training to train the fingers. Don't recommend doing this directly after your hangboard session, particularly if it's been a long session and intense on the fingers, because it opens us up to injury. But these are just some other ideas and other training methods if you don't have access to a hangboard, or if you want to have a bit of variation in your training. So currently you can see me, I'm on a digiboard. So this is an overhanging board. Obviously the routes are standardised on this board, the lights define the different routes to climb, and it's all graded. These are great on a nice kind of 45-degree overhang for working your different grip types, your different finger strengths. You've got crimps, you've got slopers, you've got pinches, and you can really test yourself on different holds with more dynamic movements, which the hangboard doesn't provide in the same way. We're going to now move on to some additional strength exercises. These are exercises you can either do in the climbing gym, or you can hopefully do externally to the climbing gym if you've got access to a bar or any weights, or even just your own body weight. First exercise is just the pull-up. So on a bar, you're going to start, shoulders are relaxed, you pull up to your top, full flexion, and then back to extension in the elbows. These are going to be strict pull-ups, so we're not using momentum, there's no kip. As you pull up, you're staying under control. A modification of this, and a great way to train pull-ups initially, is shoulder shrugs. This is where we're in a dead hang on the bar. You go from a relaxed, deep hang to an engaged shoulder hang and back down. Really focusing on pulling the scapula back and down, really engaging your shoulders and your lats of the upper back. Great way, like I say, to train pull-ups and to develop that shoulder strength. Next one, simple exercise here, we've got bicep curls. Using a weight that you can do for around 6 to 10 reps. You're going to hold the weight in your hand and you flex at the elbow, engaging the biceps to try and bring the weight up, getting a full range of motion, cores tight and strong. Another variation is chaturanga push-ups. These are better for your triceps. So you go from an up dog position down into a chaturanga and then pressing back up. Again, keeping the head up, back nice and straight, and you're pressing up out of the ground, keeping the elbows pointing to the sky. Those with lower back issues might want to just avoid this exercise as it can overload it. Now, great wrist-specific exercises. We've got wrist flexors and extensors. So again, finding a weight that's comfortable for kind of 10 to 12 reps. I think I've got a 5 kilogram there. You're just going to flex up with the wrist, really working the flexors, and then this, you're going to flick the wrist over, so this time the knuckles are facing the sky, and you're working your wrist extensors. Again, I think we're on quite light weights here, 2 to 3 kilograms. Final exercise, of this is your tricep extensions. So just like the bicep curl, you're going to be doing curls, but this time, again, your grip is facing up to the sky. This is a great way to wake up and really engage your forearms and your extensor muscles. Finally, for those that have access, these tools are great. They're kind of like a finger trainer. It's kind of your finger curls. And you just squeeze in and let it out for 5 to 10 reps. Fantastic, guys. So that's us done there for today. What we've hopefully given you is a comprehensive overview of some climbing specific exercises that you can do if you're looking to improve your climbing. Like you say, if there's one take home you take from this, I'd look at the fingerboarding in the middle, because I feel this is a great way to develop finger strength that's very specific to climbing. Obviously, we've also looked around the finger training and additional exercises, firstly to wake up the body, and then secondly to apply strength and conditioning to the body to make us stronger, fitter climbers all round. As with everything, if you're doing any sort of workout, make sure that you're sufficiently warmed up, you've got the muscles activated, you've got them warm before you put them under too much tension, under too much strain. Likewise, work your most powerful, most specific movements first so that you are freshest and not carrying any fatigue, and then work the more general, larger conditioning muscles later, such as the pull-ups and the curls, because the more muscles are engaged and you're doing less damage, if you like, to the muscle fibers and the tendons involved. Like we say, this is all about moderation. We're not expecting you to jump in and do this entire workout as a whole. You're going to take the bits that work best for you, capitalize on your strengths and work on your weaknesses. As with everything, guys, listen to your body and do what you feel is right in your progression and where you are in your climbing development. So with that from me, I hope you've found something useful this. I hope you've learned something new. I hope you can implement some of these into your own training. Got any questions, drop them in the comments down below. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Stay tuned for the next one because there's lots more good stuff in the pipeline. We'll see you in a bit.